Good evening. It's Friday, just a little bit after 6 o'clock. As I want to do uh, going forward, I want to be live for this as often as possible. Last week I had to do it pre-recorded, and thank you for taking the time to find it and watching it. Those of you that did, please like and share this channel because I really want this to get as widely viewed as possible because I think the content is useful. And I would really like to have an audience for a book when a book is finally exist, which is well underway. And my goal is to have something that people can get in their hands before the end of this year. The project I'm working on is a book idea called $5 in the World, and it's based on stories and sayings that my dad had over the course of his life that he shared with me and my brother and anybody else he knew on a regular basis. What motivated me to do this is I'm fascinated by the life my dad lived and the philosophy by which he lived it. I know he imparted a lot of it to me and my brother, and again, so many other people that came into contact with him that I find it powerful and useful and a kind way to go through life. And I think these are the kind of things that the world always needs is a worldview, a philosophy, even of processing what happens in this world in a way that's life affirming, fulfilling, kind, generous, open, to other people's ideas, not defensive, a certain kind of confidence and optimism. I think these things are the hallmarks of a life that is full of satisfaction and most likely good works. And I think again the world could use a lot of it, a lot more of it. Always has, always will. And I just up close and personal to a guy like my dad. I just fascinated how consistent he was, how reliable he was, how strong he was in these beliefs, and I just want to share them with somebody, even if it's even ends up just being a family thing that we can continue and reminisce and remember what he said and taught. That would be great. But I think there's more to it than that, and that's why I want to use this as one way to get that idea out there. And because we always need something to keep us on task, I feel like doing this every Friday will help me stay motivated and focused on continue to write and continue to edit and continue to do the next thing that I need to do to make this thing come together and go as far as it may go in God's will, and whether other people like it as much as I do. And it's one of those things where whenever people knew my dad for any amount of time or heard stories about him, it's pretty typical. People go, that's amazing. That's a great saying. That's useful. Somebody should write that stuff down. Do you have that stuff written down somewhere? Those kind of questions. And I know some of that's just being nice, but I also think they mean it because there is a lot there to like. There is a lot there to learn from. And the one I want to talk about tonight was a story I heard a lot of times, especially in times of stress and duress, in those times in life where you kind of look around and it's like, I don't really know how this is going to work. I don't, a lot of things would have to go right for this to work out for me. Those kind of feelings. And I think anyone can relate to that sensation of being in a tough spot. And my dad told this story, not to brag. Whenever he told it, it was always with a sense of wonder, almost like he almost couldn't believe it worked out the way it did. He couldn't, that given the circumstances and the environment, the business environment, the climate that was going on at the time, the amount of money involved, and all these different things. Um, he was always amazed at how it actually turned out, and you could hear it in his voice when he tell the story. I love this story because in my own life, and like I'm sure in yours too, there's been more than one instance where you look around and it's like, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. I don't know how this is going to work out well for me, or I don't know what to do next, but I know I got to do the next right thing and and see where it goes, and not give up, not surrender, not just quit trying. And this is one of those kind of stories, and I'm looking forward to it. This is what I wrote. The chapter is called Thy Will Be Done. And I want to read it just as I've got it written. And I would love feedback, editorial comments. How does it fit you? What do you think of it? How does it strike you? Do you think it's something I should keep in the book? And that kind of thing. I would love feedback. And of course, support would be good too. And like and share if you want to, and see if we can get other people involved with this, because the more the merrier. And I really do appreciate each and every one of you. Anyone that takes the time to come on and listen and spend time with me, I'm forever thankful. So this is called Thy Will Be Done. And this is what I wrote. My dad epitomized the entrepreneur. He believed in himself, set goals, and strove to see them come to fruition. He understood business. He paid more attention to his dad's lessons than he let on, and took calculated risks. He followed his curiosity to innovative thinking. He truly believed that most problems were opportunities in disguise. He started his own mobile home dealership, Gray Trailer Sales, in about 1951. The industry found its origins shortly after World War II. The trailers proved to be popular, with the public looking forward to travel and adventure after years of war scarcity. In those days, they were designed to be pulled behind a car and parked in a roadside campground. They were typically 8 feet wide and up to 45 feet long. My dad was successful and used credit to leverage the expansion of his business. As business cycles can turn unfavorable, he found his company in a difficult situation. He was over-leveraged in a down market. His creditors expressed concern, and they began to bring pressure on the business, which meant pressure on my dad. All that he had built faced the threat of dismantling. The mobile home business was a model built on inventory management and retail selling. Inventory carrying costs and customers' purchases are always sensitive to interest rate moves, monetary policy shifts, and all the other market forces. For most operators, it was as much a debt management challenge as it was a marketing puzzle. His situation was dire, and if he didn't get a break from his creditors, Gray Trailer Sales would face liquidation. It was a harrowing time for Dad. He would tell us later on, when it comes to facing problems, you should only spend 10% of your time thinking about the problem and 90% of your time thinking about the solutions. With this philosophy, he and his inner circle began looking for a plan that would satisfy all of his creditors. This posed a real challenge. None of them would get all of what would be desired, and each one would effectively hold a veto. If one said no, then all of them would say no. The Gray Company Brain Trust needed to thread the needle on this proposal. While it is likely that his creditors and suppliers wanted things to work out well for Gray's, for their sake as well as Dad's, those market conditions tend to foster a cut your losses mindset in creditors. They all had the view that relationships are important, but business is business. If the deal didn't work for each one of them, they would set aside whatever warm feelings they may have had for my dad and sell off the assets of the company. Eventually, a plan came together that Gray Trailer Sales could realistically execute, and also provide resources to spread around all of the debt holders. My dad and his attorney figured that the best plan of action would be to get all of the decision makers in one room and make the pitch. In this scenario, creditors would be less inclined to negotiate separate objections that would likely unravel any deal. The conference room approach could create a perspective of shared sacrifice for a greater good amongst the participants. The meeting took place in the conference room of a hotel. My dad presented his proposal. It was designed to restructure the company's debt, make good faith cash payments to the creditors, and give Gray Trailer Sales a reset. The plan proved to be bold and feasible, yet it demanded a lot of give from a group of businessmen that typically did more taking than giving. When the pitch came to an end, the collected executives asked for the room. They wanted my dad to leave the room so that they could discuss the offer. He went to his hotel room and settled in for however long the deliberations might take. He must have felt like a prisoner in that room. He had to stay by the phone because the call could come at any time. Yes, this was in the days of landline phones only. And I want to pause there and think about that. A lot of times having a cell phone and having to work through a pressure situation, being able to have the freedom of movement to walk outside, get away from it and clear your head, but still be in contact with the world is actually a pretty nice benefit. This was something that just wasn't available back in these days. So really, when he went to that hotel room to wait while his attorney stayed in the room with all of the other guys, he didn't have anywhere he could go, really. He didn't want to miss a call, right? So he was just stuck in that hotel room. And you know how waiting is when you don't have an end time, when you don't know when the waiting's going to end, like there's no ticking clock. It's just there you are. It could take 5 minutes, it could take 5 hours. You don't know. That kind of waiting is difficult, isn't it? And when something's really critical in the balance, like your life's work, for example, or something else, that's the most intense kind of waiting. So this is what I'll resume with the writing here. In an effort to relieve his restlessness, he decided to lay down, and in the process, it came to mind to recite the Lord's Prayer. With his livelihood and his life's work in the balance, he sensed God was his only refuge, hence the Lord's Prayer in this moment. When he would recount this day later, he informed us that when he reached the line, "Thy will be done," he closed his eyes and fell into a sound sleep. That always struck him and anyone that heard this story as pretty remarkable. I mean, you know how hard it is to fall asleep when your mind is just racing with all kinds of what ifs and worst case scenarios, and things are pretty much, you've done all you can do in a situation. The rest of it's out of your control, and you don't know when it's going to be resolved, and waiting on top of all of that. We all know what sleepless nights are like. We all know what nervous energy is like. We all know what anxiety can do to our central nervous system and ability to unwind or relax. It wreaks havoc with all of those things. The idea that this kind of sense of meditative state that he reached, not on purpose, he wasn't trying to go there. He was just trying to relax, kind of calm himself down a bit. And the Lord's Prayer came to mind. And as you know, it's, our Father art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. That idea of thy will be done evidently brought him enough sense of peace that he just, like I said, he went into a sound sleep. Didn't even finish the prayer out loud. Picking up the story from there, the phone's ringing woke him up from his deep slumber. When he answered the phone, his attorney excitedly told him, with a hint of disbelief in his voice, that the plan had been unanimously accepted. Grays would get the opportunity to continue. My dad never forgot that day. He believed that we should do everything in our power to achieve our goals and dreams. He also believed that God always has the last and best word on things. This correlation between our efforts and God's benevolent will gave my dad a foundational optimism. If a goal came to fruition, that was a cause for thanksgiving. If it did not turn out as planned, then that meant God had intended something else for the circumstances. To Dad, the only way to experience real failure was to not try something and to not give it one's all. He fully expected his plans to work, and at the same time understood that if one plan fell short, he could always try another one. He never gave up on any situation due to hopelessness. So that is my chapter called Thy Will Be Done. That's what I have on it so far. What I found that's working well with the writing of these is to keep the stories kind of that length, a couple of 2, 3, 4 pages. They can work as reference points. They can work as a devotional. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think it needs more depth? Do you think it needs to be expanded more? Does it need more detail? Do you like it the way it is? I'm open to suggestions. Like I said, I've written a lot of stuff in my day, a lot of papers, a lot of reports, a lot of essays and things like that. But this style of writing for a book kind of project is new to me. So I'm open to, like I said, I would love to hear your thoughts, and not only about the technique stuff, but also just the content. What do you think of that story? Does it give you some thought about how to handle stressful situations? Can you relate to what it's like? I know we all can. That much I don't even need to answer to, that we can relate to, being between what feels like a rock and a hard place. I'm curious too, what do you do when you're in that situation, or when you've been in that situation, or if you're in that situation now? What kind of things do you do to try to slow the game down, to kind of bring some clarity to yourself, to get outside of that tunnel vision that comes from stress, and that comes from high anxiety, that comes from high pressure? How do you broaden your perspective? How do you rekindle hope when it feels hopeless? I would love to see in the chat, in the comments, or direct message me and tell me some of the things that you've found that works. Or even let me know if you've tried a bunch of things and never really found something that worked. And maybe we can talk through that. I'm here for that too. I want this to be as interactive as can possibly be. And I hope as our audience expands, if God wills it, that we'll have a chance to get even more input from more people. But I just am grateful again for this platform and this opportunity and your support and whatever form it takes. So with all that said, it's sneaking up on about the 30-minute mark. They won't all be exactly 30 minutes, but I'm just going to always be sure to be on here either live or my recording in place in time for a 6 o'clock time slot. I want to establish the consistency of this broadcast, as well as the consistency of doing work every week towards getting this completed. So thanks for being here with me. Like it, share it, talk it up amongst your friends, family, whomever. I really need your help in expanding the reach of this, because I really would like to see what this does for you and anybody else that comes across it. With that all said, that's all for now. Thank you for checking in with this for this session of $5 in the World. My name is Duke Gray. I like to write. I'm available for public speaking, coaching, those kind of things. And on top of all that, I like to help people with real estate plans. So whatever you might need, I'm here for it. If you'd like to hear more, message me, contact me, let me know. If you have an audience that would like to hear some teaching or coaching on different things, inspirational issues, theological issues, nonprofit management. I'm on 3 different boards now, and I deal with a lot of different things in that world. Be happy to be there for it. But most of all, I just want your help to continue working on this writing project. God's peace, everyone. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you again soon.